Welcome to AI in Healthcare and Medicine, how AI is transforming patient care and medical innovation. I am Brandy Starr, Chief Operating Officer with Tegrita, and more importantly, your moderator for today's panel. So welcome. You are in the right place if you want to hear how AI is actually changing healthcare. So not just what's possible, but what's working, what's hard, and what's next. Let's start at the heart of patient care, which is diagnosis. And so, how is AI improving diagnostic accuracy and patient outcomes?
There is a couple bots, and one of them is from Amy, is called Amy from Google. It has the ability to check in with somebody. And so while you don't have the time to constantly write people and ask how they're doing, how's the medication interacting, how are you feeling, it's transcribing them into notes. It's helping to diagnose beyond the check-in, because if you say it makes my chest tight and you've had a couple other things around, they're like, oh, this actually might be a gastrointestinal issue and maybe not necessarily a blood pressure issue. And there's a lot of other things that it can figure out, because how are you supposed to hold every medical book in your brain? It works with you, and then you do the proofing of the concept to make sure that that is what you go forward with.
And I have actually seen a real world experience of that situation with my mom. Her doctor leveraged some AI enabled tool that put out all of these, exactly what you said, all of these different symptoms, other medical issues, and it identified a potential cause and connected that doctor with another doctor across the world who had dealt with several patients. And what she has, the diagnosis is way too long for me to remember what that word is, but it is something that only occurs in like 3% of the population. So without AI, the likelihood of them actually diagnosing that issue was very, very slim. What are the biggest roadblocks you've seen, and what is actually helping to overcome them?
Just the friction of use. Nobody wants to throw in another application, make sure it's in the background, that all of your mics and other things are working, right? There needs to be something that they're native and that can use. If you shoot cell phone, an iPad, something of that nature, right? We have a coaching network that comes from a different couple brands, I think like Quit Buddy and Vape Buddy. We also have Quit for Life and a few other things that are all smoking cessation brands. We also have a couple others that are weight loss focused, and it's the therapy side of it, so you can talk through your feelings. These sessions are very personal, and people want to be in it. They want to look you in the eye when you talk about these problems. So finding something that reduces friction and maybe can be semi-automatic is what we found the best way to go about it.
Making sure that the decision to implement said tool is coming from the top down. Because a lot of times they look at AI as a silver bullet. It's going to solve it, but it's just another tool. And it's a tool that will empower users, empower physicians, therapists, what have you, even patients to do research or to understand what they need to address. But if we don't understand the root cause, what's the problem we're trying to address, and we don't start from the top down and disseminate that to the users, adoption is going to be harder. And we already know that there's a lot of fear of, is this going to take my job, right? But if they understand, we're not here to take your job. We're here to allow for you to focus on things that are more strategic in nature, that are not as monotonous. And if that's the case, then they understand the initial problem we're trying to solve, and then adoption should be a lot smoother.
Are there ethnic, socioeconomic, insurance biases, all of those things in there? And so I definitely want to go there, because I don't think you can have any conversation about AI and not talk about some of the ethical considerations.
Policy is the floor. That's the minimum standard. And Anthropic and other companies are pushing for independent review, independent standards. So when you say, well, those are third-party people, how can we trust them? Do some research. They're typically fairly open about how they're evaluating. And if you say that I can't trust a third-party source, you do when you buy an Energy Star appliance and a lot of other things that are around your house. So you already trust them quite literally with your life. Any unspecified variable will be then left to the actual AI to decide. So if you don't determine that the type of insurance they have or the zip code matters and how much you should consider those things, That is data that will enter the system, and it gets to decide how much that matters. Companies then put in their own data. And Amazon, for example, hired more men from certain colleges because it looked at the past people that were successful at the company and stayed the longest in typecast who should be the future hires. These models are getting to be quite good, and they're using collegiate sources. It's, what are you putting into it? What does your data look like?
I have tested exactly what you said in giving it the same information, but giving a different objective. I gave it something where I was the CEO and that I was most accountable to my shareholders, the board, these sorts of things. I gave it one where I was more the customer. When I said I was the CEO, what it recommended was what was going to be most financially advantageous. When I said I was the customer, it gave the answer that was in the best interest of the customers that my fake organization served.
The technology is strong. What you feed into it is what's going to make it keep talking about the things that it's being trained on. So if the data that's being fed into these models are not representative of the population that we serve as health systems, it is not going to be conducive in predicting treatments and outcomes for the populations that we serve. It's going to be heavily biased to only represent the population whose data has gone into building the system. It's the Consortium of Health AI, and it was actually formed by the Biden administration to create policies and ethics and really guardrails on how we are going to be using AI in treatments and predictions in managing conditions. Because given the information that we have right now, and given the biases that we have in the data sets that's getting fed into creating these models, we are not there where we can take those predictions and say this applies to everybody, because it clearly doesn't. We are in the early stages of creating those guardrails. The doctor-patient relationship is almost, that's a place where you're very vulnerable. So then how do you essentially ensure that patients are adopting it without feeling compromised?
If you're on LinkedIn, look for the influencers that are in healthcare that are talking about these things. Find those people who are plugged in and just consistently listen. And that's how you will accelerate and stay current. It's really clear that while tech is powerful, it takes the people, it takes the leaders, it takes the users to really make it effective. And we are all a part of this massive change that is changing not only all the industries, but in healthcare, it literally is saving lives. I am Brandy Starr. Great to meet all of you. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the day.